Shinyu personally killed his parents' Lise. I was just returning to the palace and was about to see her. Su Yingshu's expression was cold and solemn. Shinyu had been left in the dungeon of Funing Palace, and because her grandmother had a soft heart and didn't immediately kill Shinyu, she was still struggling to survive. When Su Yingshu went down, she smelled a strong scent of medicinal liquor in the air. Shinyu, curled up in a corner, started wailing at the sound of footsteps. Don't come over. Don't come over. Don't come to claim my life. Go find Mu Fei. It was that madman Mu Fei who killed them all. It was him who killed them. Was it him who killed them, or did you disregard the life and death of your own parents, using their lives in exchange for your glory and wealth? Su Yingshu raised an eyebrow and sneered. Su Yingshu. Hate flared in Shin Ye's eyes. It's all your fault, Su Yingshu. You stole my identity, my cousin, and my glory and wealth. I'm going to kill you. She screamed maniacally and lunged at Su Yingshu, but before she could touch her, she was whipped by Su Yingshu's red jade soft whip and sent rolling on the ground. Smack! The sound of the whip striking flesh was exceptionally crisp and loud. It hurts. It hurts so much. Shinyu writhed in agony on the ground, rolling toward the wine jars and knocking over two of them. Decomposing bodies fell out, and the half that was still emitting heat made woeful sounds beside Shinyu. Even though they couldn't form a word, their sound seemed so full of suffering that it was heartbreaking to hear. Shinyu, on the brink of collapse, cried out and kicked her father's and mother's bodies away. She covered her ears. I can't hear. It's not you. It's not you. It was Mu Fei. It was Mu Fei who turned her parents into this. Why? Why didn't that madman Mu Fei just kill them outright, instead of leaving them in this world in such a state? Why torture her like this? Why torment her so? Die. Just die. Shinyu stepped on one of the corpses, trampling it desperately, mashing that half of the body into a bloody pulp. The other half, as if crying, emitted even more mournful sounds. Shenvu trembled with fear as she then crushed the other half of the body, silencing the bizarre noises from them. Only then did she feel slightly calmed down. She collapsed to the floor, her eyes hollow and lifeless. They're all dead, finally all dead. All dead. No one would hold her back anymore. She could be her princess peacefully, and enjoy her glories and wealth. Shinyu quickly crawled towards Su Yingshu, kneeling before her and kowtowing incessantly. I'm sorry, Su Yingshu. I shouldn't have harmed you, I shouldn't have impersonated you. But the imperial grandmother had feelings for me. I served her in your stead for months, and she cherished me so much. If you kill me, it'll break her heart. She'll be so distressed she won't be able to sleep. She's your kin, can you bear to see her become like this? What do you want? Su Yingshu asked with a mocking curl of her lip. Anyway, you're already the 9th princess consort, able to do as you please in the Great Qing dynasty, so you wouldn't care about this princess position in the Great Wei dynasty. Just give it to me. Let me be the princess of Great Wei. I'll take care of the imperial grandmother for you. I'll fulfill the marriage vows, marry cousin Mu Yen for you. You can't be by their side to show filial piety, but I can. I can do everything for you. The death of Shinyu Lise, she pleaded urgently, pointing to the side where her parents, crushed to death by her own hands, lay. Look! They're all dead. The father and mother who bore me are dead. No one will know my true identity. As long as you go and tell the imperial grandmother that you made me take your place as princess, I promise. I will serve her well, and I will treat cousin Mu Yen well. Su Yingshu, I beg you, let me continue being a princess. Let me keep being a princess. I don't want to live in poverty again. I'm scared of being poor. I don't want to live that life anymore. Shinyu covered her face in pain, begging Su Yingxue in the most abject way possible. She had paid everything for this position of princess. Just look at how pitiful I am, and give me the place of princess. Give it to me, Shinye's desperate voice echoed throughout the basement. Su Yingxue remained silent, instead turning to look behind her. Behind the door of the basement, Chui Han stood supporting the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager's aged face was filled with disappointment. Zhao, the imperial grandmother hadn't thought of sparing your life. But how could you be so heartless as to even kill your birth parents? They gave you life and raised you, even if they led you to live in poverty, they are still your kin, blood of your blood. Imperial grandmother, Shinyu was frozen on the ground, crawling towards the Empress Dowager on all fours, clutching at her robe. Imperial grandmother, it's not like that. It's not what you think. I didn't mean to kill them. It was because I was too scared. They were turned into human pigs, it was too horrifying. I didn't want to be dragged down by them. I was afraid of having to look after them. Enough. I will not protect you anymore. Yingxue, deal with this person as you see fit. The Empress Dowager withdrew her skirt and turned away in disappointment. Fu Mami helped her leave. Shinyu continued to scream in the basement, Imperial grandmother, spare me please. Su Yingxue, standing next to Chui Han, said coldly, she brought it upon herself, she does not deserve to live. How do you want her to die? Chui Han glanced at the 2 jars of medicinal alcohol, turn her into a human pig, to taste the suffering her parents endured. No need, that would dirty our hands. Su Yingxue surveyed the basement, let's go, husband. Well, shut the windows, leave her alone down here, so she doesn't disturb the imperial grandmother. Su Yingxue, what are you going to do to me? Save me, and I'll tell you a secret. Mu Fei, he even asked me to poison your imperial grandmother before. Su Yingxue, as the windows and door were sealed, Shinye's voice could not escape. Su Yingxue didn't even hear her final plea. All she knew was that in the basement without water or food, and with no airflow, Shinyu would die of suffocation within a day, just like her birth parents. Killing her own parents, she would stay there to join them in death. It was time to visit Jing. After 2 days of recovery, Jing still had a bruise around her neck, but she was otherwise unharmed. Upon seeing Su Yingxue, she immediately embraced her, Sister Yingxue. It's okay, Jing, no need to worry anymore. You've left Mu Fei, that psychopath. Come back with me to the great Qing dynasty, they'll give you a new identity and let you start a new life. Su Yingxue stroked her head, just as if she were comforting her own sister. Give him a daughter lease, no. I don't want to leave my master, he's been very kind, he's been kind to Jing, Sister Yingxue, please don't kill him, will you? Jing knelt on the bed, continually kowtowing and begging Su Yingxue. It's not possible. Chu Yihan's cold voice instantly stunned Jing. Jing's lips were pale and trembling, Nin. 9th Prince. If it had been only Su Yingxue, Jing might have pleaded again, but Chu Yihan's firm "it's not possible" completely dispelled her hopes. She collapsed dispiritedly onto the bed. Su Yingxue knew Jing was still young, and she felt empathy for her situation, telling her all about what Mu Fei had done. The telling lasted until the evening. You see, Mu Fei has done so many wrongs. Even though he came from a pitiable background, think about the people who died by his hand, who were hurt by him, weren't they all pitiable? You were used by him too. Su Yingxue rubbed her head, so please, stop thinking about him, okay? Okay, Jing's voice trembled with frailty. Sister Yingxue, when will Master die? I don't know, but it should be within a few days. The Emperor, my cousin, will execute him. Oh. Jing hung her head, showing a disappointed expression. Stop thinking about him. Rest early. When you come back with me to the Great Qing dynasty, everything will be a new beginning. Okay, thank you, Sister Ingxue. Jing was unusually calm, no longer making a fuss, quietly lying back down on the bed, as obedient as she was in front of Mu Fei. Su Ingxue and Chui Han also planned to go back to rest. Seeing that Chui Han did not talk much, Su Ingxue gently hooked her fingers on his hand. Hubby, what are you thinking about? Thinking that my princess is truly generous, even caring for the female slaves who were with Mu Fei. Chui Han pinched Su Yingxu's nose. Su Ingxue playfully tried to bite his finger. Kindness is worth protecting. If someone had taught me the same when I was 13 or 14, I wouldn't have been bullied. You were bullied at that time. Chui Han frowned slightly, a fierce aura suddenly emanating from him. Don't be like this. The ones who bullied me were just Su Yuro and her daughter, and they're dead. Su Ingxue pretended to be relaxed. In this lifetime, indeed, no one had the chance to bully her. She only pitied her past self. Maybe it's because of all you've experienced recently, you seem to have matured quite a bit. Chui Han touched Su Yingxu's face. Su Ingxue stuck out her tongue. I don't want to be old. If anyone is to get older, it should be you. After all, she was still a bright and charming young girl. Her last life had vanished like smoke, but in this life, she wanted to take control of her own destiny. So you really despise the fact that I'm older than you? A coldness flickered in Chui Han's eyes, sending a shiver down Su Yingxu's spine. You are old. Chui Han was 13 years her senior. Indeed, he was no longer young. As Chu Jinling put it, if the imperial uncle had married earlier, by now he might have a daughter about as old as you, auntie. A storm of darkness swirling in his eyes, Chui Han carried Su Ingxue straight back to the palace. Su Ingxue pleaded incessantly, you're not old at all. She truly regretted it and wished he was not so spirited. In the heat of passion, Chui Han nibbled her tender earlobe, his voice sensually enticing, give your highness a daughter. One as playful and adorable as her. Live and die with the master lease. Su Ingxue fell into a deep sleep, far from thinking about the matter of having a daughter. In her dreams, she was only considering when she could stand up straight tomorrow. Qin Ruli decided to execute Mu Fei. When Mu Fei was let out through the noon gate, he wore a calm expression, as if the outcome did not surprise him at all. He had deliberately disfigured his face, making it impossible to recognize his original appearance. Qin Mayan oversaw the execution, tossing out a bamboo slip, and the executioner's blade fell swiftly. Mu Fei was rapidly reduced to a corpse. Before his death, the image that flashed through his mind was that of Jing. It was truly a pity he couldn't see her one last time. But the thought of her basking in the sun each day from now on, as charming as it was today, filled him with joy. Young girl, your master can no longer stay with you forever. In Funing Palace. Su Ingxue had planned to check on Jing's health, but upon entering the palace, she found that Jing had already breathed her last. Her lips trembled. How could this have happened? Why? She hastily called for Madame Fu. Madame Fu, seeing Jing's body, was equally astonished. How? How did this happen? The maid has been well looked after, and her health was fine, without any problems. How could she have died? Su Yingxu's outcry alerted the Empress Dowager. She was speaking with Chui Han. Upon hearing the news, Chui Han stood up. Your Highness will go and have a look, do not worry. Good, with you by Yingxu's side, this dowager feels somewhat relieved. The Empress Dowager waved her hand, letting Chui Han go. When Chui Han arrived, Su Yingxue was examining Ah Jing's body. It seemed Ah Jing had been poisoned. A poisonous insect had been found inside her body, and it was this insect that had bitten her to death. However, the insect was also dead. Su Yingxue didn't quite understand these matters with poisonous insects, so Qin Mayan brought the court physician, who presented another dead insect, finally clearing up Su Yingxue's confusion. These are united heart goo insects, residing inside a person's body. If one of the two insects dies, the other will die immediately. When placed inside two people's bodies, it binds their fates together. Does that mean that with Mu Fei's death, Ah Jing would also die? Su Yingxu's eyes blazed with anger, her teeth clenching in hate. Damned Mu Fei. He even had to drag Ah Jing down with him in death. Su Yingxue wished she could haul Mu Fei's body over for a merciless whipping. It's not necessarily someone's doing on purpose. The united heart goo requires both individuals to ingest it willingly, and they develop a connection. If there are no feelings between two people, they could not take the goo. The court physician said. 2. People with feelings for each other. Su Yingxue suddenly didn't understand. Could it be? Ah Jing liked Mu Fei. Mu Fei might not be indifferent to her either. Chu Yihan's hand rested on Su Yingxu's shoulder. Do you remember the scene when Mu Fei seized the young girl, threatening you? He was waiting for you. Waiting for me. Su Yingxu's mind revisited the scene from that night. Everyone around Mu Fei was dead, leaving only Ah Jing. Then, when he saw her, he grabbed Ah Jing by the neck, claiming he would use her to threaten Su Yingxue. Instantly, it sparked her instinct to protect Ah Jing. Afterwards, Mu Fei liked Ah Jing. At that time, he threatened me by seizing Ah Jing by the neck. Was it just to protect her, to make me spare her? Su Yingxue suddenly realized how delicately she had fallen into Mu Fei's trap. Did he actually want to use her to protect Ah Jing? But this connected heart's goo, there were still things she didn't understand. If Mu Fei went to such lengths to protect Ah Jing, why would he feed her the connected heart's goo? Perhaps the connected heart's goo wasn't administered by Mu Fei. Maybe she had already anticipated Mu Fei's end. Chu Yihan glanced at the girl lying on the bed, who had closed her eyes, looking extremely peaceful in death. She looked composed, with a trace of a frozen smile on her lips. She didn't seem like someone forced to die, but someone who had been prepared. Did she do it willingly? Su Yingxue sighed deeply. She couldn't understand how someone as mentally twisted and cruel as Mu Fei could have someone willing to die for him. That night, Su Yingxue struggled to sleep for a long time. Wrapped in her clothing, she stood by the window, gazing up at the moonlight outside. The night sky was a deep, dark blue, like an infinite curtain, with the full moon hanging high and no stars to ornament it, making it seem especially lonely. Even though it radiated a gentle glow, it was still alone. Just like some people, who rush through life in solitude. Are you feeling sorry for that young girl? The man's slightly moist voice flowed into her heart like a spring. Su Yingxue glanced sideways, her cheeks puffed. Yes, Ah Jing had no parents and suffered a lot, but her thoughts were pure, truly rare. She was only Mu Fei's female slave. I originally wanted to bring her back to the Great Qing dynasty and provide her with a stable life, yet she followed Mu Fei in death. It really made her feel regretful. Such a clean and pure girl. Her heart was set on Mu Fei. To follow him to hell might not be a bad thing. A doctor can sense a patient's emotions. When you examined Ah Jing's body, did you feel her pain? Chu Yihan gently nudged her with the tip of his nose, his warm breath curling around her ear. Su Yingxue recalled, there's no form of death that isn't painful. Although I've never experienced the agony of being devoured by a goo, it's definitely not easier than cutting one's wrists or biting one's tongue. With it being so difficult, yet she accepted it gladly, does that not prove her happiness? Every sentence from Chui Han seemed to perfectly untangle the knots in Su Yingshu's heart. Su Yingshu looked down and smiled. I never knew before that your highness was such a thoughtful person. Although Chui Han had great talent and was more suited to be an emperor than Chu Mingyuan, before she married him, she always felt that he lived only in legends, a figure high above everyone else. She had never thought that such a lofty, almost divine person could be so attentive. My attentiveness is reserved for you alone, Chui Han said as he gently stroked her cascade of hair, the tenderness in his touch as if he were caressing a child. Really? How thoughtful are you towards me, my husband? Su Yingshu playfully wrapped her arms around Chui Han's waist, stood on her tiptoes, and with slightly squinted eyes, she sized up Chui Han, like a little fox sharpening its claws, up to something. Chui Han couldn't be unaware of what the little fox was after. He pinched her fox-like paws, recollecting slowly, word by word. You stopped wetting the bed at 5, became picky with food at 6, loved sweets at 7, made a fuss outside the Marquis Manor at 8, at 9. Chui Han recounted one by one the minute details of Su Yingshu's life, remembering them all crisply, even including her moods and temper at specific times, as though he had personally witnessed every single scene. Farewell Lise, Su Yingshu, after listening, was shocked for a long time. She didn't ask Chui Han why he cared so much. Because at last, Chui Han said, never underestimate a young man who has someone in his heart. He will carefully accompany his young girl as she grows, secure for her a realm of thousands of miles, and hold her up to be the moonlight cherished by thousands. The moon shone so purely, its silver light casting beauty across the land, so breathtaking that one could hardly sleep, only wishing to be its companion for life. Su Yingshu and Chui Han stayed in Great Way for a month until Chui Han received a secret report and took Su Yingshu to bid farewell to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager's eyes reddened with reluctance. Are you leaving already? Can't you stay a little longer? I still want to talk more with Yingshu. She had missed Cheng for more than 20 years, and these 2 months had been her happiest in many years. Seeing Su Yingshu was like seeing her own daughter. Su Yingshu's departure felt as if her heart was being torn out. Chui Han explained dispassionately, the Great Qing border is plagued with conflict, old General Su has come to consult, and I must return to the court to stabilize the war situation. I cannot stay any longer, I hope the imperial grandmother will understand. The urgency of war affairs left no room for other considerations. The Empress Dowager sighed and wept, well, the war is indeed urgent, you both should go back first. It need not upset mother so much, if your highness is willing. Leaving Yingshu and Yingdu, and after your highness has settled the border conflicts, you could then take Yingshu back. After all, Yingshu is a girl and surely she won't be required to fight in the battle, right? Qin Ge couldn't bear to see the Empress Dowager's sorrow and thus advised. Your Highness is not reassured. Chui Han outright rejected Qin Ge's suggestion. Qin Ge was somewhat embarrassed. Chui Han had always been respectful to her and the Empress Dowager. His sudden refusal was unexpected. Su Yingshu turned her eyes and glanced at Chui Han, thinking to herself, what's there to be worried about? You're mischievous by nature and cannot stay still in the palace. What if you got lost in Great Way? Chui Han cast a cool glance her way. I'm old enough. How could I possibly get lost? Su Yingshu found the reason laughable. If your highness says you'll get lost, then you'll get lost. I won't, Su Yingshu pouted. Listening on the side, Qin Ge laughed. How could Yingshu possibly get lost? Even if she wanted to, the imperial guards of the palace and the imperial guards of Yingdu would protect her. Besides, she also has her 2 cousins, Rulai, and Mu Yen. Yingxue in Great Wei is the most honored little princess. Who would dare to harm her, having the heart of a bear and the guts of a leopard? She is already your highness' wife, and it wouldn't be right to trouble others with her. Chui Han appeared polite on the surface, but his tone had already turned cold, sending a shiver down one's spine. Qin Gu couldn't figure out which of her words had offended Chui Han. However, the Empress Dowager understood clearly, it's fine. Yingxue will be with her husband, and I have nothing to worry about. After you've packed, I'll see you off. Thank you, Imperial Grandmother. Chui Han and Su Yingxue bowed in unison and then went back. Qin Gu stayed with the Empress Dowager, puzzled. Mother, do you really bear to let Yingxue leave? The ninth prince is going back to the battlefield. Bringing Yingxue might mean hardships for her. Wouldn't it be better to have Yingxue stay and keep you company for a while longer? Are you suggesting she stays to keep me company? The Empress Dowager's scrutinizing gaze settled on Qin Gu. No sign of Qin Mayan Lise. Qin Gu suddenly felt guilty. Mother, a mother knows her daughter best. Her thoughts were instantly seen through by the Empress Dowager. Alas, Gear, it's not that I do not care for Mu Yen, but Yingxue and Yi Han's feelings for each other are strong. Moreover, they are already married, the deed is done. Why cause unnecessary trouble? I will have Rulai annul the betrothal between Mu Yen and Yingxue, as if it never existed. You and Rulai should take your time to carefully choose another partner for Mu Yen. The Empress Dowager held Qin Ge's hand, her voice earnest and heartfelt. I know you have no children of your own and have always treated Mu Yen as if he were your birth son, but his marriage is ultimately not something we can control. In her tone was a note of compromise. In the past, when Xinyu impersonated Su Yingxue, she wanted to decide Qin Mayan's marital affairs, only to nearly make a grave mistake. Only then did she truly understand that, despite their high positions, not everything is under the control of people who seem to be omnipotent. In the end, they are only mortals with flesh and blood, subject to birth, aging, sickness, and death, happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy. They are not the deities who control life and death. Qin Ge's smile was bitter at the corners of her mouth. Your daughter acknowledges this, but feels sorry for Mu Yen. Thinking of how Qin Mayan had spent the past few days languishing in the prince's mansion, Qin Gu felt heartbroken. She had not been able to give her child the best, what he most desired. It was a failure on her part as a mother. The next day, Su Yingxue took her leave from the Empress Dowager. In the Funing Palace, the Empress Dowager's eyes rimmed red, fighting back tears as she held Su Yingxue's hand, speechless and choked up. Su Yingxue also felt reluctant to part. Grandmother, rest assured. After the great Qing dynasty stabilizes, I will return to visit you with your highness. Good, I know, I will be waiting for you. Even after just one night, the Empress Dowager seemed to have aged considerably, her hair whiter. Su Yingxue wasn't sure if it was her own illusion, but the Empress Dowager seemed ill. But when she had administered the antidote for the sleeping draught that day, she had not observed any unusual symptoms in her physical condition. These past days, she had intended to re-examine and take her pulse, but the Empress Dowager said that the court physicians were taking care of her and that there was no need to trouble anyone, so Su Yingxue did not insist. At this moment, she wanted to take the Empress Dowager's pulse. However, the Empress Dowager steadied herself with Qin Ge's hand, diverting the attention. Gear, where is Mu Yen? As her cousin, how can he not come to see Yingxue off when she is about to leave? Qin really frowned, quite puzzled. Indeed, in these past days, I have not seen him attend court properly. I wonder what he has been doing in the mansion. Anxious they might see through any ruse, Qin Gu quickly said, Your Majesty, Mother, Mu Yen has been training troops in the military camp these past days and is quite exhausted. Recently, he has been at home contemplating military strategies, in case of emergency. Thus, he neglected Yingxue, and it is truly regrettable. With an apologetic look towards Su Yingxue, Qin Gu said, Yingxue, your cousin has been busy and unable to see you off. As your aunt, I apologize on his behalf. All the travel provisions I prepared for you have been given to your people. Take care on your journey. Thank you for your thoughtfulness, aunt, said Su Yingxue with polite gratitude. Yet, she noticed numerous gaps in Qin Ge's words. During a chat with Qin Ruli a few days ago, he mentioned not having seen Qin Mayan for a month, with no sign of him even at the army camp, leaving his whereabouts unknown. With Qin Ge making excuses, it seemed that Qin Mayan was not having an easy time in the mansion. But wasn't she the cause of it all? Dog food, you'll get used to it, Lise. Su Yingxue felt somewhat of a headache, and after leaving Wei Palace, she spent her time on the carriage in a daze. After a long while, she heaved a heavy sigh. Chui Han looked up from his report, a hint of mockery curling up at the corner of his mouth, reluctant to part ways. Are you? Yes, grandmother is so old to endure this separation, how distressing it must be. Although she didn't have many years of emotional connection, the kinship by blood and the care she had received in recent days made her treat the Empress Dowager like her own family. Your Highness thought you were reluctant to part with another, not the Empress Dowager. The look in Chu Yihan's eyes returned to the report, but his tone was decidedly cool. Su Yingxue examined his serious and handsome face, stifling a laugh on purpose. Yes, both of my cousins have been very kind to me, especially Qin. How has Qin Mayan treated you well? Before Su Yingxue could finish her sentence, Chu Yihan slapped the report down on the small table with a smack, even causing the legs to become crooked. Su Yingxue burst out laughing. I'm talking about cousin Qin Ruli. He gave me many medical texts, had all the secret formulas and excellent remedies from the Imperial Medical Academy of Great Wei copied for me, and was very supportive of my ambition to spread clinics throughout the world. He instructed me to make sure, when the time comes, to bring mature modern medicine to Great Wei and benefit the people of Great Wei. A flicker of discomfort passed over Chu Yihan's face. Is that so? Then you should study it thoroughly. I do plan to research thoroughly. How is it that my husband, the formidable ninth prince, has taken to getting sour and jealous so often these days? Su Yingxue deliberately pushed the matter in Chu Yihan's face, just in time to see a flash of discomposure in his eyes. Truly satisfying. Chu Yihan, using his strength as a man, had bullied her not a little at night. Seeing him discomposed now, Su Yingxue couldn't feel more thrilled. It was as if all the days of backaches and exhausting labor had paid off. Hey. Your Highness, what are you doing? Chu Yihan scooped her into his arms in one move, startling Su Yingxue into yelling. What do you call your Highness? Your Highness, there are people outside. Mo Chi can hear us, and there are commoners on the street too. What should you call your Highness? Hubby. Still feeling triumphant. Am not triumphant at all. I didn't. Inside the carriage, the woman's voice carried a hint of threatened fear, half genuinely alarmed and half insincere. Then came a sequence of embarrassed, heart-fluttering, intimate noises. The shadow guards on either side felt their faces redden unconsciously. The leader cast a glance and kept steadily driving the carriage. Mo Chi, sitting closest to him, sent an admiring look his way. Commander, you're really steady. Had he mastered the art of blocking out sound? How could he remain so unflappable? Mo Chi, expressionless as he drove, responded, you get used to it. In the great Qing dynasty, had heard and seen plenty, and hadn't been spared his share of lessons. Over time, he became accustomed to it. Just dog food. Had made a special stomach for it, so as not to burst. His immunity was pretty good these days, and it hadn't yet burst through his evenly proportioned, attractive figure. But, it did often remind him of someone. In consideration of him, Suing Shue spared Hong Lian her life, imprisoning her in the dungeon, never to emerge for the rest of her life. She said, whenever he wanted, he could go see her. But so much time had passed, that strong yearning he once felt, and the joy that came with touch. Gradually, it all but dissipated. Phew! Mo Chi was briefly lost in thought and nearly collided with someone ahead. The man rode a majestic steed, dressed in battle armor that fluttered vigorously. He was awe-inspiring, with a remarkably strong presence. The baby feels a bit wronged, Lise. Suing Shue immediately leaned out. Mo Chi, are you tired of driving? Let me do it, and you go rest inside the carriage. The carriage bumped, giving Suing Shue the chance she had been waiting for to break free from Chui Han. She hurriedly jumped down from the carriage. But on the road ahead, Qin Mayan was waiting for her on horseback. Qin Mayan approached her and extended his hand, his eyes deep. Shue, mount the horse. Your Highness has something to say to you. Suing Shue had intended to ask him to get down and talk, but a man's low roar came from behind her. Suing Shue, don't you dare. He was threatening her. Suing Shue huffed and placed her hand in Qin Mayan's, allowing him to take her away on horseback. Qin Mayan's horse sped off quickly, disappearing from everyone's sight after a while. Mo Chi turned to ask for instructions. Master, should we bring the princess back? With Suing Shue fleeing with Qin Mayan right in front of Chui Han, it seemed Shu would have destroyed the Great Wei dynasty out of spite. Let them be. From inside the carriage, a man's voice, cold as ice and barely containing his rage, could be heard. Conscious of his duty, Mo Chi alighted from the carriage, and with the shadow guards, moved away from the carriage. To their surprise, Chui Han ordered, proceed. Proceed. Are we not waiting for the princess? One of the shadow guards whispered tentatively. Mo Chi gave him a strong pat on the back and squinted at him. Follow the master's orders. Those who talk too much will receive their punishment. The shadow guard who got hit had tearful eyes. The baby was just worried about the princess. The baby felt a bit wronged. Qin Mayan took Suing Shue close to the military camp. Today, he had come from the prince's mansion to the military camp. Standing on the high mountain behind the camp, overlooking the soldiers' training below, Qin Mayan couldn't hide the sorrow in his eyes. Shue, is there truly no chance for me? He had fallen for Suing Shue at first sight, with a deep affection that he had never abandoned. He had tried everything, and in the end, he even waited for the truth, that Suing Shue was his cousin to whom he had been betrothed. But in the end, fate was making a fool of him. Suing Shue held his horse's reins and lightly patted its mane. Yes, cousin, you have no chance. I love your highness, and I am married to him. Such a straightforward answer. Decisive and final. Not leaving anyone with any hope. A sharp pain surged through Qin Mayan's heart, more intense than the worst injury he had ever suffered on the battlefield. Suing Shue knew he would be hurt, but she had to say the words she had prepared. Cousin, I am honored to be your cousin by blood, and I am honored to have met you. Like your highness, you are a hero of our time, the arm of the nation, but Suing Shue is only one person with just one heart. I have promised myself to your highness and cannot promise myself to anyone else. My mother once said, one life, one partnership, no room for another in between. These words hit Qin Mayan like a storm, pounding into his heart. He desperately tried to block them, but they recklessly stormed into his heart, leaving it battered and wounded. Fine, then your highness will send you away. Qin Mayan's eyes were slightly red, his barely concealed anger and frustration clearly written on his face. He had never known the feeling of not getting what he wanted. But now, he had to face the reality. His beloved cousin, his Suing Shue, he had to part with her for life, never to have her again. Before leaving, Xue told him another truth. Cousin, actually, your young aunt Qin Jing has long been deceased. My mother, Long Shuli, is not her. The initial heart still remains Lise, but the one who crossed over into her body was a modern soul, and as for what a modern soul is, after we together vanquish Wu Dao, I think you also understand. Qin Mu Yan was so shocked by this revelation that he couldn't regain his composure for a long time. He did know that Wu Dao was a soul from this world, as were Han Yuan and Rong Xing. So his little aunt, no, it should be said Su Yingshu's mother was as well. Thinking back, this matter did not seem so strange after all. Though he had never seen his little aunt, the imperial brother said she was always a gentle and timid girl, far different from the world-renowned Long Shuli. Therefore, the person with whom you were betrothed is already gone. Our betrothal has not been fulfilled, and you need not dwell on it. Su Yingshu advised. The greatest regret is not that one has failed to obtain what they desire, but that what was rightfully his was mistakenly given to someone else. If it was never his to begin with, it should be able to untie the indissoluble knot in his heart. Qin Mu Yan's smile was mournful. It seems, Your Highness, we were truly not fated. If only his injuries had been more severe a bit earlier, if only he had met Su Yingshu a bit sooner. Now, thinking about these things was meaningless. Qin Mu Yan helped Su Yingshu onto the horse. Since it is so, Your Highness will not obstruct you and Chuihan any longer. This horse was discovered by Your Highness in the forest. It took quite some time to tame. Capable of traveling 1,000 li in a day, fiercely loyal, it has followed me through many battles. Today, Your Highness gifts it to you. Before Su Yingshu could say anything, Qin Mu Yan patted the horse, as if communicating with it. No sooner had he left the horse, it raised its hooves and neighed. It lifted its front legs high in a display of wild grace, showcasing its ability to cover great distances. Yet it did so without harming Su Yingshu in the slightest. Su Yingshu was amazed. What an impressive horse. To receive such a fine horse from Qin Mu Yan, how embarrassing for her. Cousin, what is the horse's name? Since Qin Mu Yan offered it with such sincerity, it would be terribly rude not to accept. Qin Mu Yan smiled faintly. Since it is a gift to you, it's your horse. You should name it. Su Yingshu held the reins, glanced at Qin Mu Yan once more, and after a moment's thought, she said, Let's call it Chushin. Good. Qin Mu Yan did not ask about the meaning behind the name she chose. He stood in place, watching her as she spurred the horse and left. As he watched her retreating figure, the longing in his eyes transitioned from intense to ethereal, diluting bit by bit until it vanished into nothingness. He turned and entered the military camp. Riding Chushin, Su Yingshu hurried to catch up to Chuihan. The forest breeze was refreshingly pleasant, and her smile gradually blossomed. Chushin is most beautiful. To not forget Chushin is to remain true to the beginning. All things in this world come to this. Qin Mu Yan's treasured gift, she would remember in her heart. She would surely never forget. Years later, Chushin would still be there. Chuihan was having a tiff with Su Yingshu. Along the way, Mo Qi and the shadow guards all complained bitterly. Both masters were very composed, each more resilient than the other. But those who served them could not endure it. Mo Qi, accustomed to being tormented, was doing okay, but the other shadow guards who followed suffered miserably. In front of Chuihan, one would be punished each day, and the punishment was to return to the shadow guard camp for retraining. They had all finally graduated from the shadow guard camp and had yet to really show their skills. So, just like that, they had the ill luck of being sent back to start over. What rotten luck. The forgetful potion Lise, Mo Qi, after attending to Chuihan, finally found a moment to visit Suingxue. Seeing Suingxue leisurely preparing medicine, mumbling to herself, not knowing to whom she was speaking, Mo-chi knocked on the door. "Princess, may I come in?" Suingxue looked up and said to little Ginseng, "All right, you go practice now." Then, she waved Mo-chi in. "Come in." Mo-chi stood opposite her, his sword properly secured at his waist, young and handsomely boyish, his eyes like a galaxy, which were a pleasant sight to behold. Su Yingxi's hand rested on the copper pestle used for grinding medicine, as she appraised him with composure. "Mo-chi, just speak your mind, there's no need for politeness with me. You've served His Highness for so long, and you don't need to stand on ceremony with me, you're princess." "I would like to ask the princess for a certain medicine," Mo-chi stated bluntly. Suingxue blinked. What medicine? She knew that Mo-chi had been injured in the eye before and had taken some time to recuperate before hurrying to the Great Wei dynasty. But Chu Yihan's men were particularly resilient to injuries, so Suingxue hadn't been too concerned about Mo-chi. Now that Mo-chi had spoken up, she certainly wouldn't refuse. "The princess is peerless in medical skills. I wonder if you have ever developed a medicine that can make one forget feelings." Mo-chi's amber eyes unwittingly spread a trace of pain. Suingxue paused. No. Such a medicine was indeed beyond the scope of her current research. Mo-chi was the first to come to her seeking such a remedy. "Could the princess consider the loyalty I've shown His Highness over the years, and my utmost effort to protect the princess, and develop such a medicine for me?" Mo-chi's tone was quiet, pleading, and his voice gradually grew moist. This room was small, and sorrow could be contagious. Suingxue also began to feel the sadness. Mo-chi had feelings for Hong Lian, a fact she learned later, and Mo-chi had even apologized to her for causing misunderstandings between her and Chu Yihan before, saying it was his fault, and he had accepted his punishment. Now he was asking for a medicine to forget feelings. Suingxue gazed steadily at him. "Are you certain? Do you really need to rely on medicine? It is not impossible for human effort to achieve this. You are the most formidable person by His Highness' side, the leader of the Shadow Guards, with outstanding achievements and perseverance. Over time, you will surely forget her. Moreover, you will meet many people in the future, and you are bound to find a better miss, who will bring you good fortune. There won't be another," Mo-chi said, looking down. Suingxue seemed to hear something shattering in the air, breaking so cleanly, the feeling told her it couldn't be picked up, couldn't be restored. Just as she was wondering how to comfort Mo-chi, she heard his muffled voice, filled with profound depression. "Love is a terrifying thing. It turns a person's name into a seal, closing off your heart. You can't escape, and no one else can enter." Suingxue was taken aback. Really, that terrifying? She attempted to imagine it, what it would be like if she were to give up Chu Yihan and be with someone else. The feeling of her heart being torn and in pain was very real. She couldn't do it. Love indeed was terrifying. She promised Mo-chi, "I will do my best to develop it for you, but it will take time. I may even need to go back and ask Saint Juan for help, but I will get the medicine for you." "Thank you, princess." A faint smile appeared on the man's face, slightly bitter and yet heavy. But in his amber-colored eyes, Suingxue thought she saw a glimmer of hope. Su Hao falls into enemy lines. Lease, she could only hope that she could bring Mo-chi a glimmer of hope. It seemed that her mother's medical skills had mentioned a medicine that could control a person's memory. She began to peruse her mother's letters as soon as she entered Medicine King Valley and also took the opportunity to write a letter to Princess Rongxing, asking her for some advice and references. At this moment, she had no idea what kind of dire straits Princess Rongxing was in. When Ah Hong received the letter, he reported to Chui Feng with some difficulty, "Master, this letter, should it be given to Princess Rongxing?" More and more stunning female slaves surrounded Chui Feng, attending to him. His sensually alluring face wore a cold smile. Give it to her. Let her see how wonderful the outside world is, how free people are, and let her truly experience the feeling of always being in the dark. Yes. Ah Hong sighed and turned to go to the underground chamber. He used Chui Feng's blood to open the door, then placed the letter down. Seeing the food on the table that hadn't been touched for several days, he sighed deeply, alas. On the border of the great Qing dynasty, Su Yingxue hadn't spoken a word to Chui Han the entire journey. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about softening her stance, but Chu Yihan's ill temper has shown when she had stealthily climbed into the carriage, and he had thrown her out. She was also losing her patience. Why was Chu Yihan so wildly jealous? He wouldn't even listen to her explanation. All she did was bid farewell to Qin Mayan. He had been cold to her for such a long time, determined to be moody, and even threw her aside. If Chu Yihan wouldn't come for her, she was happy to ride alone and take her time. She could even enjoy the local customs along the border. Not until her grandfather's letter arrived, reporting that Su Hao had been trapped behind enemy lines for 2 days, did Su Yingxue become anxious and quickly headed towards Jingqing. Grandpa! Grandpa! Wearing cold jade, Su Yingxue dashed into the military camp, headed straight for the commander's tent. Upon hearing her voice, Su Qingji hurriedly stood up to welcome her. Yingxue. Grandfather. Su Yingxue flung herself into his arms, her face filled with urgency. Grandfather, where's brother? How is he? Is there any news? When do you plan to dispatch troops? I want to go save brother too. Calm down, don't be impetuous and anxious. Su Qingji patted her back, commanding Su Wei to pour her some tea. Su Yingxue was in no mood for tea. She sat beside Su Qingji at the commander's position. Grandfather. You are brave and good at war. Brother is in danger on his military campaign. Why haven't you rescued him? Isn't he trapped? She had received the message yesterday and had hurried there today. By her calculations, Su Hao had been surrounded for 3 days, in the midst of the enemy camp, without water or food. It was very dangerous. Miss, don't be hasty. Don't blame the old general just yet. The eldest young master is the old general's grandson. How could the general not be anxious? It's just that, given the situation, the general cannot dispatch more troops now. Su Wei hurriedly reassured Su Yingxue. Why can't more troops be dispatched? Su Yingxue's face was filled with confusion. The Great Qing dynasty had a 1,000,000-strong army, a prosperous economy, and ample provisions. It stood as the most powerful among the 4 kingdoms and 9 provinces and should be invincible in any offensive. This time, Qi's state had come to fight, simply because Han Yuan had died, and they were picking a fight. Although Qi's state was one of the 4 nations, its power was far from that of the Great Qing dynasty. Why should they fear them? Yingxue, after all, you are a woman and do not understand military affairs. This matter awaits the 9th prince's decision. As your brother has fallen into enemy hands without heeding my advice, he must bear the consequences. Anger and annoyance were evident on Su Qingzi's face, mixed with distress. Chu Yihan seeks accountability. Lease, brother won't listen to advice. Why is this? Brother has always been level-headed, and since he set out with grandfather, how could he ignore advice? Su Yingxue was utterly confused. In Yungue City, they had even watched their mother's final video together. At that time, Su Hao showed no sign of anything unusual. Su Qingji shook his head in frustration. Only Su Wei could explain to Su Yingxue. The eldest young master previously went back to Jiangdu City alone, claiming it was to visit Miss Wu. The old general, remembering his long separation from Miss Wu, did not blame him. But after the general returned, he started to become downcast and acted less prudently, often making mistakes. This time, he was provoked by the enemy general's taunts, acted impulsively, and led troops in anger, falling into the enemy's trap. The old general had indeed sent troops to rescue him, but the enemy, knowing that the eldest young master was his grandson, guarded him especially strictly. The old general dispatched troops twice, losing thousands of soldiers, and with the enemy securing the eldest young master so tightly, there was nothing he could do. One couldn't send those soldiers to their deaths just for the sake of the eldest young master alone. Their lives mattered too, they were beloved sons of their parents. Having heard this, Su Yingxue immediately understood that Su Qingji was not only their grandfather but also the defender general of the great Qing dynasty. He couldn't disregard the lives of his soldiers. This battlefield was cruel, not like their play at home in Jiangdu City. But what she couldn't comprehend was, Sister Jin Yan has always been fine in Jiangdu City, so why would brother do this? Su Yingxue simply couldn't think of what could have happened between the two of them to cause Su Hao to lose his rationality to such an extent. Who knows? If you want to know, ask your brother. Su Qingji angrily slammed down his teacup, feeling a mix of anger, annoyance, helplessness, and pain. Su Yingxue knew there wasn't much she could do. After all, the soldiers of the entire great Qing dynasty listened most to Chu Yihan's commands, and this border territory was also Chu Yihan's domain. The mere mention of his name could terrify the enemy troops. She turned and rushed out to find Chu Yihan. She bumped into a solid chest at the entrance of the tent. Ouch! Su Yingxue touched her nose, which really hurt. How could you be so careless? Chu Yihan, seeing her reddened nose, wanted to comfort her with a heartache. But recalling that she had run off with Mu Yan and hadn't come to please him in days, the anger in his heart hadn't yet subsided, and he withdrew his hands. Your Highness, my brother has been trapped behind enemy lines for 3 days now, please think of a solution. Su Yingxue grabbed his arm, stomping her feet in anxiety. So, it was for Su Hao. Chu Yihan's expression darkened, and he pursed his lips as he entered the military tent. Upon seeing Chu Yihan, Su Qingji and Su Wei quickly bowed. We are at your Highness' service. Please rise. As soon as Chu Yihan entered the military camp, he emanated an aura of majestic fortitude, his whole being exuding an imposing and confident air as if he owned the entire battlefield. He had already received reports earlier that Su Hao, unable to bear the taunts of the enemy, had recklessly led his troops out, losing not only men and supplies but also getting himself trapped behind enemy lines. Chu Yihan began by reprimanding, Su Hao, as the General Weiwu with rich combat experience, has still committed such a basic error, causing loss to our troops and supplies and damaging the dignity of our forces. Your Highness will definitely not let this go unpunished. Anger was evident on Chu Yihan's face. Su Qingji and Su Wei hastily knelt down with Su Qingji saying, I have failed in my strict upbringing, leading to Su Hao making such a mistake. I am willing to share in his punishment. He kowtowed deeply to Chu Yihan, while the other military commanders in the tent also knelt, not daring to speak. Su Qingji is punished least. Su Yingxue was desperate as she rushed in front of Chu Yihan. Your Highness, now is not the time to talk about crimes. Brother is still in danger, we must rescue him first. Yingxue, don't be presumptuous in front of your Highness. Step down. Su Qingji scolded coldly. Yingxue felt a stifling sensation in her chest. She had always been informal in front of Chu Yihan, but now, with Su Hao trapped by the enemy, Chu Yihan was being so heartless. Yingxue turned and knelt down in front of him. Your Highness, can't we rescue brother first? Do you really want to see something happen to him? Su Hao was her real brother, and Wu Jinyan was still waiting for him in Jiangdu City. Insolence. Chu Yihan looked at her coldly. Su Yingxue disregards military discipline and is to be confined for 10 days immediately. She is not to be released until the military affairs are concluded. With a wave of his hand, a commanding officer approached Su Yingxue to escort her away. Yingxue refused to go, so she was bound and taken away. Chu Yihan, I must save my brother. Su Yingxue's voice still echoed in the tent. Su Qingzi's expression was grim, and he kowtowed deeply. This humble official has failed to discipline Su Hao properly and to manage my granddaughter. I voluntarily accept the punishment of 30 military canes and to be executed publicly. I hope for your highness forgiveness. Go ahead. Chu Yihan didn't stop him and gave the order, summon all the commanding officers to witness the execution in person. If anyone dares to put their own interest first and disobey military orders in the future, they will be executed without mercy. Yes. The atmosphere inside the tent was one of severe military discipline. Outside the military tent, Su Qingji knelt before the command tent as the commanding officers watched the execution. They all felt a pang of pity as they watched him being punished. But they also sensed Chu Yihan's strictness in military discipline, taking Su Hao as a warning to be even more cautious. Outside the military tent, the sounds of Su Qingzi's punishment echoed. Just like a military camp, Su Yingxue, confined inside, could also hear the sounds. Mo Qi came to Chu Yihan's side to report, "Master, the princess is crying." Chu Yihan's heart sank. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his gaze was sharp as a blade. Deploy 10 shadow guards to watch her day and night. If she steps 1 foot out of the tent, your highness shall show no mercy. Yes. Mo Qi relayed the order. Although he knew Chu Yihan was acting out of necessity, he couldn't help but ask on behalf of Su Yingxue, "Your highness, what are your plans for rescuing General Su?" Su Hao was Chu Yihan's brother-in-law. Even setting aside this familial relationship, Chu Yihan valued Su Hao as an outstanding general and would certainly not disregard his safety. It was only in front of everyone that he needed to show absolute impartiality and fairness without showing any favoritism. Chu Yihan stood in front of the sand table, scrutinizing the battle situation, his eyebrows tightly furrowed. Su Hao has been too reckless this time, falling right into the enemy's trap. Since the enemy cannot recoup their losses through battle, they will surely kill him in a fit of rage. His situation is extremely perilous. One misstep and Su Hao could be doomed. And given his pride and dignity, he would surely prioritize the country's interests. If he were trapped in a stalemate for too long, he wouldn't hold out and wouldn't allow himself to become a bargaining chip in negotiations. He would rather die for his country. This was something that greatly worried Chu Yihan. Chu Yihan had not slept all night. In combination with the reports, he meticulously went through the entire battle situation. Su Qingji was severely injured and had to rest in bed for the night. The next day, he first went to visit Su Yingxue. Seeing her tied up and behaving, Su Qingji was somewhat relieved. He patted her shoulder and instructed her, "Stay here quietly and don't cause a fuss. Your grandfather and your highness will take care of rescuing your brother. You mustn't add to the chaos." Using Su Hao as a leverage lease, grandfather. Su Yingxue's eyes reddened. "I'm so skilled in medicine, I can help too. Take me with you, I can save my brother. What if brother's injuries are severe? And your wounds? Let me go, and I'll apply medicine to your wounds." "No need, the military camp has the best military doctors. You don't have to worry about Howard or myself. What you need to do now is to stay here. The camp is not like Jiangdu City, and certainly not like being at home. You must not go to your highness to throw a tantrum. And you must not meddle in military affairs." After giving his instructions to Su Yingxue, Su Qingji planned to leave. He had already reached the entrance of the tent but then turned back, telling her carefully and patiently, "In the military camp, Su Hao and I are generals, Your Highness is the commander-in-chief. Regardless of what happens, Your Highness is always right. For instance, yesterday's order blaming me was strict military discipline. If Your Highness cannot rescue Su Hao, it is also within expectation. You must not blame Your Highness privately, be spoiled by favor, or throw tantrums at Your Highness. Do you understand?" Seeing that Su Qingji could barely straighten his waist from the injuries, Su Yingxue said with tears, "I understand, granddaughter will not throw tantrums at Your Highness." "Good, stay here peacefully until the war is over." Supported by Su Wei, Su Qingji walked out. Su Yingxue was filled with mixed emotions, regretting that she couldn't be of help. In this military camp, can there really be no place for women? Inside the commander's tent, Chu Yihan summoned all the generals, and a proposed treaty lay before them. Chu Yihan's voice was cold and deep, "This is sent from Qi State, take a look for yourselves." The generals each took their turn to read the document. A straightforward General Zhou angrily said, "The enemy's delusions. They actually want our army to surrender, cede territory, and pay them silver as compensation for their war losses. What about the casualties of our soldiers? Who will compensate them? The beautiful lands of the great Qing dynasty cannot fall into the hands of Qi State, especially when they are a defeated force. This war, which was supposed to end in a month, with their strength, they could push all the way to the capital city of Qi State and make the emperor kneel before them and call them father. But Qi State was asking them to surrender and cede land as well as pay, or else they would kill Su Hao. This was a naked threat. Your Highness, we must not surrender. Otherwise, where will the army's dignity stand, where will Your Highness' reputation stand? As long as Your Highness wishes to fight, I will follow you to the capital of Qi State. Make them bow their heads in subjection and beg for mercy." "Exactly. Yes, Your Highness. We cannot surrender." "Absolutely not." Su Hao took military action on his own, already breaching military discipline. That Your Highness did not execute him was already showing extraordinary mercy. If Su Hao has any integrity, he would sacrifice himself for his country to fulfill a greater cause. General Zhou spoke with emotion and indignation. He had just finished speaking when the general behind him nudged him with an elbow and gave him a look. General Zhou saw the army's main commander for this mission, Su Qingji, standing at the forefront, silent and with a stern expression. He immediately understood that it would not be pleasant for Su Qingji to hear them criticizing Su Hao. Su Hao was his grandson, personally trained by him, the youngest and most commanding general in the military. Zhou Tang no longer spoke. The tent was suddenly filled with a deathly silence. Chu Yihan, clad in armor with the Qingfeng sword at his side, exuded authority and an imposing air of a commander-in-chief. His gaze rested on Su Qingji. "Old General Su, Your Highness would like to hear your opinion." Cough. Su Qingji coughed deeply, blood in his sputum, which he quickly concealed. Publicly chastising and beating, he cleared his throat, knelt on one knee, and respectfully said, "In my humble opinion, what the generals have said is very true. Su Hao's rash deployment and entrapment within enemy lines are not worth lamenting. We must not compromise the majesty of the great Qing dynasty or weaken our cities because of one person. If necessary, this old minister will personally lead the troops to battle and orders Su Hao to sacrifice himself for the country as an example to our army." Hiss. After Su Qingji finished speaking, everyone gasped in shock. Su Qingji was known for his strict military discipline, and his reputation was widespread, but they had never imagined he would be so ruthless even to his own grandson, the only direct descendant of the Marquis of Marshal South's manor. After Su Jingshuan's death, there was only young Master Su Hao left in the Marquis manor. If Su Hao died, the Marquis Manor would have no successor. Yet, upon further thought, they admired the fact that Su Qingji, as the Defender General, did not show favoritism towards Su Hao just because he was his grandson. Everyone stood up in respect and said in unison, "Old General Su's righteousness is truly admirable, sir." Su Qingji slightly bowed to them. "I have not been strict enough in my discipline, allowing Su Hao to make mistakes. I am ashamed. The old general is too modest," Zhou Tang said, comforting him. Up to now, Su Qingji had not uttered a single biased word. Just yesterday, he had taken his punishment bravely, making those who had blamed Su Hao seem somewhat excessive. After much thought, Zhou Tang stepped forward and suggested, "Your Highness, why not let me lead the troops for another attempt? I will exert all my efforts to rescue General Su Hao." Chu Yihan pointed to the sand table. "You demonstrate for your Highness. How do you plan to rescue Su Hao?" This, Zhou Tang clenched his fists and walked up to the sand table, pointing to the location where Su Hao was surrounded. He said, "This place is the one-line sky canyon, surrounded by mountains on 3 sides and with only one entrance, which is tightly guarded by the Qi army. There are about 50,000 soldiers, and the terrain is treacherous. However, the original troops of the Qi army are stationed far from here. Your Highness, give me 100,000 troops, and I will lead them straight into the canyon to rescue General Su Hao." Everyone gathered around the sand table and agreed with Zhou Tang's proposal. "Your Highness, our army currently has 300,000 troops at the border. Giving General Zhou 100,000 troops is more than enough. Although the canyon is treacherous, we can force our way through. The Qi army is no match for us, and General Zhou will surely be victorious. Yes, by gathering our troops, we can also directly attack the Qi army's main camp and capture their Liaking. To counter-threaten Qi state." Chu Yihan's face was grim. 300,000 troops moving out, splitting into 2 groups, but the Qi army also has 200,000 troops. He only sent 50,000 to guard the canyon. Don't you understand what this implies? They are waiting for our large forces to strike at the canyon and then circle around to attack us. Once our military camp is vacant, they will break through Jingqing." After hearing this, Zhou Tang felt a chill run down his spine, but after all, the Qi army only has 200,000 troops, and there are more than 100,000 troops near our army that can be mobilized. Even if we lose Jingqing, we can take it back, can't we? Someone beat Zhou Tang with 20 military sticks immediately. Chu Yihan roared angrily. All the generals knelt down in fear. "Your Highness, please calm your anger." Mo Qi led the men and directly pressed Zhou Tang in front of everyone, beating him with 20 military sticks. Zhou Tang spat out a mouthful of blood from the beating. He genuinely did not understand what he had said wrong to warrant a public punishment from Chu Yihan. "Your Highness, please calm your anger." General Zhou was just eager to save General Su Hao. Among the generals, a slender but steady middle-aged man stepped forward. Chu Yihan's strategy. This man named Lu Chongming was the defender of Bamboo Leaf Pass, having protected it for many years with abundant experience in border battles. He solved Zhou Tang's dilemma. "General Zhou, attempting to rescue General Su Hao in this manner is improper. Firstly, deploying 100,000 troops to engage in a fierce battle in the valley, we would surely suffer a severe drain against a well-prepared enemy force. It's not certain that we can rescue our men, and we may easily fall into encirclement by the remaining 150,000 soldiers of the Qi army. Not only could we lose General Su Hao, but we would also suffer hefty losses in our troops. Secondly, if Jingqing were to fall, the common people would be left homeless, a loss that cannot easily be remedied. Your Highness is considering the welfare of the border's populace. You must not act rashly. General Lu speaks with good reason," Su Qingji commended. Although he was very thankful to Zhou Tang for his sincere concern for Su Hao, Lu Chongming was clear-headed, representing a model for them as military men. Moreover, the 9th Princess Consort is still in camp. If all the troops are deployed, this will also jeopardize the prince's safety, Lu Chongming also thoughtfully added. Nonsense. There is no favoritism in the military. How can the army be compared with a single woman? Chu Yihan rebuked Lu Chongming. Lu Chongming hastily admitted his fault. Yes, this subordinate has spoken out of turn. He glanced regretfully at Su Qingji, whose feelings were somewhat complex. He was worried about Su Hao as well and wanted to know what decision Chu Yihan would ultimately make. But despite discussing until evening, they still had no plan that satisfied and got an approving nod from Chu Yihan. Su Qingji gradually felt tormented, his body beginning to give out. During the night, overwhelmed with concern, he fainted. Old General. All the commanding officers grew anxious. Su Wei carried Su Qingji back to his military tent, while Chu Yihan called for the army's doctor but did not follow them there himself. Watching the officers all follow old General Su, Mo Qi privately asked Chu Yihan, "Your Highness, why not send the princess to treat old General Su? There's no army physician with superior medical skills to the princess here." After all, Su Yingxue would devote herself wholeheartedly when it came to her own grandfather. Chu Yihan shook his head. "There is a spy within our ranks." "What?" Mo Qi's eyes widened in shock. Chu Yihan walked over to the sand table again, eyeing the terrain and topography laid out before him, his thoughts growing more intense. Su Hao might act rashly out of emotional agitation, but the trap set by Qi's state was all too easy. If Su Yingxue were let out, her judgment would inevitably be clouded by her concern for her family. With Su Hao trapped behind enemy lines and old General Su in a similar predicament, Su Yingxue would be even more anxious. She might end up being exploited again. Chu Yihan wrote 2 secret letters, ordering Mo Qi to deliver them overnight. He waited until all the officers had left old General Su's company before he stealthily entered his tent. Although Su Qingji was old, his martial arts had not diminished in the least. He drew his sword from the scabbard and, amidst the darkness, accurately struck at the intruding figure. Clang! The clear collision of metal caused Su Qingji to stagger back several steps. The chill of the sharp blade made him widen his eyes. "Your Highness." This was the unmistakable edge of the Qingfeng sword, which he had experienced firsthand before. As he was about to light the lamp, Chu Yihan interrupted, "Keep quiet, don't let anyone notice." Just as Su Qingji was puzzling over this, Su Wei's voice came from outside the tent. "General, what happened?" "Nothing, I just accidentally knocked over a medicine bowl. Do you need me to prepare another bowl for you?" Cunning Qi army, no need, you all may leave. Old General, you must take good care of yourself. Lu Chongming's voice came through. Zhou Tang was outside too. "Old General, let us come in and see you." "No need, cough cough, this old man wishes to rest now, thank you all for your concern." Su Qing, pretending to cough a few times making the sound of getting into bed, convinced the gathered crowd outside the tent to disperse. Once the sound of footsteps had vanished, Chu Yihan spoke faintly, "Old General, can your body still hold up?" Su Qing lifted the quilt, intending to get out of bed. "This official is ashamed, putting your highness, no need for formalities, at this moment, I am your grandson-in-law." In the darkness, Chu Yihan accurately steadied him. Su Qing was somewhat touched but also puzzled. "Your highness, this is to deceive others, but why go to such lengths?" As soon as Chu Yihan entered the military camp, he had Su Yingxue tied up and put under watch, and had not shown any kindness to this old man. Initially, Su Qing thought Chu Yihan's anger to be understandable, but now with his covert late-night visit, his motives were inscrutable. Inconveniences abound in the military camp. Your Highness' previous cold treatment, and also the attitude toward Yingxue, I beg the old general's forbearance, Chui Han said, his voice holding a trace of apology. Your Highness need not do so, it is all as it should be. But have you noticed something, Your Highness? You act with such caution, there is a hidden traitor in the army. Chu Yihan's tone was very certain, without the slightest hesitation, startling Su Qing. In the army, after his shock, Su Qing struggled to regain his composure. The military commanders have always dedicated themselves to the great Qing dynasty with utmost discipline. How could there be a traitor among them? This was even more unexpected to him than Su Hao's actions. If there were no traitor, Su Hao couldn't possibly be trapped in enemy territory. It's already the 4th day, and if Su Hao is still alive, it's not because he hasn't sacrificed himself for the country, but because he's being held captive in the enemy camp, unable to move. Chu Yihan had intimate knowledge of each of his commanders. Regarding Su Hao, he was sure of 2 things. Firstly, Su Hao was not someone who would act rashly and charge directly into the enemy's camp. Secondly, he knew that if Su Hao had any capacity at all, he would not have been trapped in the enemy camp for so long. It would be better to say that he was under house arrest rather than being besieged. The enemy was holding him as a bargaining chip, aiming for both fame and profit. In the dark, Su Qing couldn't see anything clearly, but he could see the peerless radiance twinkling in Chu Yihan's obsidian-like eyes. His temperament was so steady that even Su Qing, a general who had fought for decades, deeply admired him. Your Highness, do you already have a plan? Su Qing asked. The composure of Chu Yihan allowed Su Qing's heightened anxiety to somewhat abate. I have sent out 2 secret letters, one to Xiao Yu. In Xiao Ye's hands is a work team that can break through any cliff or precipice within a day. During my battle with Qin Mu Yen, I had witnessed their capability. I will request they create a secret passage in Gorge Skyline, to facilitate my search for Su Hao. After his initial shock, Su Qing composed himself and requested to be allowed to undertake the mission. For such a perilous venture into enemy territory, please allow this official the opportunity, Your Highness. Let me take on this task. Chu Yihan, upon whom the entire great Qing dynasty's fate rested, should not be taking such risks. It would be a dereliction of duty for him as Defender General. Saint Juan saves Su Yingxue. It's impossible. Old General Su's injuries have not healed, and his abilities are limited. If he falls into enemy hands again, it would be even more troublesome. There is another secret letter from Your Highness that does require old General Su to take some action, Chu Yihan instructed indifferently. Su Qingzi's blood boiled with fervor. Your Highness orders, your humble servant would not hesitate to die 1,000 times over. Chu Yihan whispered a sentence in his ear that shocked Su Qingzi once again. Can this really work? It can. The reply from Chu Yihan was very succinct and his tone brooked no argument, leaving Su Qingzi unable to retort. After Chu Yihan had left, although Su Qingzi tossed and turned sleeplessly, he felt great admiration in his heart. Chu Yihan, truly a rare talent of a general and an emperor. It really was Su Yingxue's good fortune to have married him. Into the tent where Su Yingxue was trapped, a figure slipped in. Su Yingxue had her silver needle ready in hand, and was about to shoot it, when a seductive low voice rang in her ear. Daddy's here to save you, can you show a bit of gratitude? Saint Juan. Her eyes sparkling like stars, Su Yingxue blinked and then leaped for joy. How did you get here? Hurry, untie me. Chu Yihan's handiwork was truly ruthless. She did not know what kind of ropes had been used on her, but she could not break free at all, not even able to move, which was suffocating her. Hold on, this rope is made by the Qianji Sexu family. It looks like rope, but inside it's all twisted with diamond dust. Even if you tear your skin apart, you won't be able to break free. Saint Juan fumbled with the knots behind Suing Shue for a while before he finally managed to untie them for her. Ah! Sighing in relief, Suing Shue turned around and was about to rush out. Come back. Saint Juan grabbed her and knocked hard on her head. Are you dumb? Outside is full of Chu Yihan's shadow guards. Do you think you can get out now? The moment you step one foot out, the next foot will be tied up and dragged back in. Are you dumb or what? That made sense to Suing Shue. She couldn't defeat the shadow guards. But that made her curious. If it's full of shadow guards outside, how did you old hag get in? I slipped them a sleeping draft when they weren't expecting it and snuck in. How about that? Aren't you impressed by me? Saint Juan was bursting with pride, looking for praise. Impressive. Then go and slip them some more, knock them out and get me out of here. Suing Shue urged Saint Juan. She could use the drugs herself, but it was better to let Saint Juan carry the can. If Chu Yihan found out she had run away, she'd just pin the blame on Saint Juan and let him take the fall as the culprit. Saint Juan knocked on her head again. Have you gone stupid from being tied up by Chu Yihan? Even if you get out now, what use is it? You can't save your brother nor lead an army into battle. If you go out now, you'll just get caught by Chu Yihan for nothing, wasting everyone's effort. Now you've said it all. So why did you come to find me? Small talk. For small talk you have to pay extra. Suing Shue showed her teeth and grinned, wishing she could bite Saint Juan. Having hit a nerve with Su Yingshu's intelligence, Saint Juan finally had a chance to feel smug and happily plopped down on Su Yingshu's bed. You just don't understand. Tonight, you should sleep peacefully. Tomorrow, I will take you with Chu Yihan to sneak into the valley to rescue your brother. Your Highness is willing to save my brother. How do you know? Elated beyond expectation, Suing Shue remembered Su Qing's words weighing on her like a boulder. She was always worried that Chu Yihan in the military camp wouldn't pamper her as he did in usual days and would truly leave Su Hao uncared for the sake of the army soldiers. Xiao Ye's tunnelese, if something happened to her brother, the relationship between her and Chu Yihan, it would be completely deadlocked. Are you stupid? You're Chu Yihan's beloved sweetheart, and Su Hao is your brother. How could he not save him? Moreover, Chu Yihan's lifelong reputation, he can't tolerate the Qi army trampling on his face and touching his big brother-in-law. Last night he had Mo Qi send out secret letters. I intercepted one, which was meant for Xiao Yu. He asked Xiao Yu to dig a tunnel leading to Skyline. I guess he's planning to go alone first to investigate your brother's situation and then figure out a rescue plan, while sweeping up the suicide squad of the Qi army in one fell swoop. Your Highness really thinks things through. Suing Shue exclaimed in admiration, and Chu Yihan really could hold back. Keeping such a secret from her, he decisively tied her up here. You have to say, this man is awesome. Okay, instead of praising your hubby, you'd better hurry up and make a human-like doll to put here as a decoy. Tomorrow, we will follow Chu Yihan. With the doll here, you can throw a tantrum or whatever. Otherwise, once the shadow guards come in, it can cover for you for half a day or a day. Saint Juan clanked out a bunch of tools for Suing Shue, not sure how he managed to bring them in, but it was enough to make a human-like doll as big as Suing Shue. Having said that, Saint Juan collapsed on her bed to sleep shamelessly, with no intention of helping Suing Shue with the work. Suing Shue had just moved her things into Medicine King Valley, comfortably making the doll. Little Ginseng blew a breath on the finished doll, and it even moved, startling Suing Shue so much she nearly sprained her tongue. It won't really become me, will it? Little Ginseng's bun-like face revealed a mocking smile. Dream on. That breath will only allow it to move for a day at most. It'll help you disguise Your hubby's shadow guards won't notice you've quietly slipped away within a day. Su Yingxue tried it out, and the doll even breathed. Absolutely brilliant. She couldn't help but praise little Ginseng. Being alive for thousands of years really does make a difference. Nonsense. If I were just like any of you mortals, how could I show off any superior advantages? Little Ginseng rolled its eyes, feeling disgraced being her integrated system for so long as Su Yingxue had ended up like this. But there was nothing it could do about it. Who told it to be unlucky? Who told it there was no choice? It was really depressing. Su Yingxue pinched little Ginseng's bun-like face. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. Try being inside someone else's body, and see if they wouldn't have stewed you for nourishment long ago. She had already loved her for a very long time. Little Ginseng's cheeks puffed up as it huffed, humph. It seemed very proud on the outside, but deep down, it still loved Su Yingxue. After all, by borrowing Su Yingxue's body, it could now transform into human shape. Su Yingxue and Saint Juan successfully escaped from Chu Yihan's military camp. Following Saint Juan's pre-planned route, Su Yingxue saw that Chu Yihan indeed carried the Qingfeng sword and entered the tunnel alone. But she couldn't follow Chu Yihan into the tunnel. They waited for 2 hours after Chu Yihan entered before she and Saint Juan dared to move. Walking through the tunnel dug by Xiao Yu for the second time, she was amazed again. Having money really can do anything, huh? This kind of talent, this kind of expenditure of manpower and resources, if not for a tycoon, who could afford it? Nonsense. Do you think the title of the wealthiest family is just for show? The great Qing dynasty has stood for so many years, the Shao family has existed for just as long. A century-old foundation, what's digging a tunnel to Xiao Yu? Let alone digging, if you asked him to build a city from scratch, it would be a trivial matter for him. Selling out teammates happily lease, decades ago, he had already seen just how terrifying the wealth of the Shao family could be. At that time, Xiao Ye's father, still a young man, had thrown millions for the woman he loved, making countless women of the great Qing dynasty green with envy. Millions. Su Yingxue imagined the enormity of that fortune in her mind and sighed deeply. He really did love his madam. Who said that was his madam? She was merely one of his concubines. However, not many years after marrying into the Shao family, she withered away in depression. Later on, there was never any mention of Xiao Ye's father doing anything for this concubine again. Saint Juan snorted disdainfully. Men are all about self-interest, always chasing the new and getting tired of the old. Are you talking about yourself? Su Yingxue mercilessly mocked. Saint Juan, damn it, I really want to block up that tunnel we came through. So infuriating. After Su Yingxue and Saint Juan exited the tunnel, they found themselves in a gorge, which was part of the Qi army's campsite. Unclear of the layout, they dared not move recklessly. Saint Juan told Su Yingxue to stay put and not move. His lightness skill was good, so he would scout around and then come back for her. Su Yingxue obediently stayed put and also took the time to check the medicines she had brought with her. She had brought a lot of medicinal remedies for Su Hao, and she had even made some poison last night, planning to give the Qi army an addition to their meal. God damn it. They dare to plot against my brother. They're courting death. When Saint Juan returned, his brows were tightly furrowed with worry. It's not easy to move around. There must be at least 10,000 men encamped here. We don't know which tent your brother is hidden in. Searching one by one would waste too much time and might alert the enemy. But we still have to search. Su Yingxue was quite anxious. She worried that with Su Hao's character, he wouldn't be threatened by the enemy army, and it was very likely that he would commit suicide to not become a burden to the main force. If he were to die, just thinking about it made Su Yingxue's heart ache, and there was also Wu Jinyan in Jiangdu City, who had been waiting all along for her brother to return. Saint Juan suggested they not take the risk and wait until night to search each tent. Suing Shua and he waited together until it got dark when the Qi army's vigilance had somewhat relaxed, and then the two of them stealthily infiltrated the military camp. It was Su Yingshu's first time entering enemy territory. She was extremely cautious, not daring to carelessly scatter any of the poison she carried. Not until a shadow flitted before her eyes and she was dragged into a tent. Just as Su Yingxue was about to strike, she was captured by Chui Han, who seized her wrist. Your Highness. Su Yingxue instantly stiffened all over, excessively guilty. Saint Juan, behind her, was on tiptoe, ready to flee. Get back here. Chui Han said sternly in a low voice, and Saint Juan, with the tips of his toes touching the ground, positioned himself behind Su Yingxue. Both he and Su Yingxue dared not speak, silently enduring the immense pressure emanating from Chui Han's presence. The air suddenly became thick. Su Yingxue felt as if her heart were frozen by the coldness emitting from Chui Han. She couldn't help but reach out and poke Chui Han's arm with her finger. Your Highness, don't be angry, I was just worried about my brother, and Saint Juan just happened by and offered me a hand. Saint Juan didn't dare move, thinking, good brother, didn't sell me out at the critical moment. That's worth it. But the next thing Su Yingxue said was, originally, I was planning to obediently listen to you and Grandpa's words, to be tied up in the military camp and wait, but Saint Juan insisted on untying my ropes, knocking out your shadow guards, and even discovered your secret tunnel to bring me over. I couldn't resist him. Saint Juan. Su Yingxue, you son of a, shut up. Chui Han's brow was deeply furrowed. If you want to be a meal on the enemy's plate, go ahead and walk out on your own. Luing Lise, Saint Juan vehemently shook his head. I don't want to. Had time allowed, he would have asked for it to rewind so that he could have bound Su Yingxue even tighter, and stuffed his socks into her mouth as well. This ungrateful bastard. Chui Han's chest swelled with rage, which he couldn't vent on Su Yingxue. All he could do was furrow his brow tightly. You do not trust your highness. Would I abandon Su Hao without a care? You are so anxious to dash out here to court death, do you think of marching and fighting as child's play? Your highness, I didn't mean, had it been Qin Mayan advising you today, would you have patiently waited? Chui Han's deep brows and eyes fixed on her. Su Yingxue was stunned for a moment, unable to come back to her senses. Why suddenly bring up Qin Mayan? What does he have to do with this? To Chui Han, her momentary distraction was an admission. If someone as heroic as Qin Mayan had immediately waged war on Qi for her sake, without regard for the cost of lives, and rescued Su Hao, surely Su Yingxue would have been deeply moved, wouldn't she? A faint pain throbbed in Chui Han's heart. Your Highness, what are you thinking about? What does it have to do with Qin Mayan? Enough. Your Highness does not want to hear you say that name. Each time she said it, his heart ached once more. Can you two not go back and argue later? Now that you're here, at least take a look at him. Is Su Hao dead or alive? Aren't you going to give him a glance? Saint Juan couldn't stomach this dog food any longer and could only say something unpleasant to prick their hearts. And Su Yingxue was indeed pricked to the heart. Your Highness, have you found where brother is being held? How is he now? Su Yingxue frantically shook Chui Han's arm. Chui Han brushed her hand aside, his gaze cold and clear. He's in the next tent. He waited with Su Yingxue here for the change of guards before they sneaked into the adjacent tent. On the crucifix, Su Hao was bound with thick iron chains from head to toe, utterly exhausted and covered in injuries. Brother, Su Yingxue covered her mouth to stop herself from crying out. Who are you? Behind Su Hao, a woman sounded the alarm. She hurriedly stood in front of Su Hao. After a quick glance over the three of them, she guarded Su Hao even more closely. If you want to kill him, kill me first. I will never let you touch him. Who are you? Chu Yihan asked sharply. Lu Ying was intimidated by Chu Yihan's overwhelming presence, her body trembling slightly, instinctively wanting to kneel in submission. Seeing her protect Su Hao, Su Yingxue attempted a patient explanation. We are not the Qi army, I am his, don't come any closer. Don't you dare approach him. Brother Hao is my husband. I will protect him even if it costs me my life. Lu Ying was a delicate woman but full of spirit, standing fearlessly in front of Su Hao. Husband. Su Yingxue struggled to find the words. Since when did Su Hao acquire another sister-in-law? Lu Ying, show some respect. This is the 9th prince. From behind her, Su Hao struggled to open his eyes. Each word he uttered came with enormous pain. Brother. Su Yingxue couldn't care less as she pushed Lu Ying aside, hugging Su Hao and quickly stuffing a heart protection pill into his mouth. Brother, this is a heart protection pill, swallow it quickly. Following instructions, Su Hao swallowed and began to focus on absorbing the medicine. The 9th prince. You're talking nonsense. Why would the 9th prince venture deep into enemy territory and come here? Lu Ying, having been pushed aside, showed clear displeasure on her face. Her voice, uncontrolled, drew the attention of those outside. Who's in there? Calling Su Hao husband Lise, the patrolling guards burst in and, seeing only Su Hao and Lu Ying inside the tent, coldly ordered them to behave before leaving. It was only after they had gone that Su Yingxue came out, her brows furrowed at the sight of Su Hao shackled in chains. Brother, bear with it a little longer, we will rescue you soon. Su Hao nodded through the pain. Enrich him. Behind him, Lu Ying was silently observing everything. The 9th prince and Su Hao's sister, Su Yingxue, had both come to rescue him. This was completely different from what she had anticipated. It had disrupted all her plans. Saint Juan was assisting Su Yingxue, using corrosive poison to dissolve the iron chains on Su Hao, while Chu Yihan was observing the surroundings and keeping an eye on Lu Ying. Are you the daughter of Lu Chongming? Why are you with Su Hao in the military camp? Chu Yihan's piercing gaze settled on Lu Ying. Military discipline was strict, and the military camp had always forbidden the entry of women. Even Su Yingxue had been tied up and confined upon entering the camp. It was suspicious that Lu Ying could be caught in enemy lines with Su Hao. Your Highness, I came because I was worried about my husband. I did not expect him to be trapped, and since we are bound by life and death, I will be by his side, replied Lu Ying with an explanation that seemed both reasonable and calm, neither arrogant nor humble, giving away no cause for suspicion. Chu Yihan's eyes narrowed slightly, perhaps because he could feel that Lu Ying, as the daughter of a prominent family, had an unusual calmness and meticulous thought unlike ordinary people. When Chu Yihan was about to ask more, Lu Ying rushed to Su Hao's side, catching his heavy body and supporting him with her slender arms. Hubby, hang in there. Lu Ying, don't talk nonsense. We are not. Su Hao's face showed an embarrassed expression, indicating his indecisiveness. Brother, what's going on between you two? You're already betrothed, and Sister Jin Yan should be your wife. Su Yingxue hadn't had the chance to say this earlier, but now she felt compelled to remind him. This Lu Ying, she was calling Su Hao hubby, as if she were addicted to it. Wu Jinyan's face flashed through Su Hao's mind, causing his expression to darken, and he did not respond to Su Yingxue's words. However, Lu Ying said, Yingxue, since your brother and I are bound for life, you should start calling me sister-in-law. As for Wu Jinyan, there's no need to bring her up in front of your brother again. My only sister-in-law is Wu Jinyan. Whatever the situation is with you and my brother, I'm not clear on it, but please get your facts straight before addressing me as Your Majesty the Princess, retorted Su Yingxue, unhappy with Lu Ying's assertive attitude. Furthermore, Lu Ying's statement to stop mentioning Wu Jinyan caused her impression of Lu Ying to plummet. She had no comment on Lu Ying's ambition to supplant Wu Jinyan. But the years of affection between Su Hao and Wu Jinyan could not be replaced by someone who had only appeared less than a year ago. A shadow of darkness flitted across Lu Ying's eyes. Given the current situation, it doesn't seem like the time to discuss status. I, the princess, insist on discussing it now. What will you do about it? Su Yingxue said with some pride, finding Lu Ying particularly irksome. Lu Ying did not speak for a while, refraining from acknowledging Su Yingxue as Your Majesty the Princess. Before Chuyihan could say anything, Su Hao spoke gravely. Lu Ying, Yingxue is the princess and my sister, you must not be disrespectful to her. In spite of being riddled with wounds, he put particular emphasis on his tone for the sake of the way Lu Ying addressed Su Yingxue. A tinge of dimness passed through Lu Ying's eyes as she lowered her gaze. This nobleman's daughter has seen Your Majesty the Princess, and I hope the princess will forgive me. Shocked Su Yingxue paid her no heed, instead patting Saint Juan on the shoulder. Come and give me a hand, help me carry my brother. Saint Juan gave her a disdainful look. He's not my brother. Why don't you ask your hubby to help you? Are you helping or not? His Highness still needs to lead us out, can you do that? Su Yingxue rolled her eyes at him and shot back directly. Saint Juan snorted lightly. He really was idle, looking for trouble. Grinding his teeth, he joined Su Yingxue in taking Su Hao from Lu Ying's arms. The reason she said snatch was that Su Yingxue felt Lu Ying's reluctance to let go. But she was even more unwilling to let this woman touch her brother again. With her arms empty, Lu Ying watched as Su Hao was taken away, not turning back to look at her for another glance. He was eager to return to his sister's side. Lu Ying thought darkly to herself, the relationship between Su Hao and his sister was indeed very good. If Su Yingxue did not like her, it would be somewhat tricky for her to be with Su Hao. While she pondered how to solve this matter, everyone had already walked ahead of her, and Chu Yihan's cold voice came through. You were not bound, do you wish to stay here? No, this humble daughter was careless. Lu Ying immediately followed. She had not anticipated that Chuyihan and Su Yingxue could actually create a secret passage into the one-line Sky Canyon. If they managed to rescue Su Hao like that, she would not be able to fulfill what she promised to the Qi military. So on the way, she picked up 2 pebbles and shot them out with a whoosh, one hitting the Qi soldier's torch basin and the other hitting Saint Juan's ankle. The force was gentle, but it hit the nerve, causing Saint Juan to suddenly fall over. Damn! Who's there? The Qi soldiers, alerted by the noise, immediately became vigilant. A small team quickly went to check Su Hao's tent, and upon finding him missing, they immediately sounded the military horn. Someone is breaking the prisoner out, search with caution. Chu Yihan's brows furrowed tightly. We've been discovered. What do we do? We're in a canyon, with only a few of us. Su Hao's heart was filled with worry as they were not far from the canyon Su Yingxue mentioned. Struggling to speak, he said, Yingxue, put brother down, you and his highness leave through the secret path. I will stay here. If they capture me back, they might not catch up to you quickly, and you could still escape. What are you talking about, brother? We came here to rescue you, how could we possibly leave you behind and run? Su Yingxue was in extreme distress. Even if Su Hao were unharmed, she couldn't possibly leave him alone here, and all the more so now that he was full of wounds. If he returned, wouldn't he just suffer more? Yingxue, you must not act rashly. Now that you are the 9th princess consort, you must prioritize His Highness in all matters. His Highness is so noble and our commander-in-chief. If he falls into the hands of the enemy, it would dishearten our military spirit and give Qi State an opportunity to defeat our forces. Brother cannot bear to see this happen, letting His Highness walk into a trap. I would rather die now to ensure your safety. Su Hao pulled a metal hairpin from his hair and pressed its sharp end against his own neck. Brother, don't. Su Yingshu's eyes widened in shock. A flicker of joy passed through Lu Ying's heart. Yes, Your Highness and Princess, please leave quickly. I will accompany him and buy you some time. As long as she stayed by Su Hao's side, the original plan would not change. No, you go too, back to the military camp, to your father's side. Su Hao gave Lu Ying a shove, pushing her towards Su Yingxue. Hubby, Lu Ying. Su Hao gasped heavily. Persistence towards Su Hao. When I was severely injured and unconscious, I may have spoken some nonsense, but until everything is concluded, you needn't die on my behalf. I can't accept such a sacrifice. He wanted to distance himself from Lu Ying. Lu Ying's whole body trembled slightly. The promise she had finally extracted from Su Hao through so much effort was being denied by him because of Su Yingxue and Chu Yihan. A flash of hatred passed through Lu Ying's eyes. Chu Yihan glanced at Su Hao and said, Your Highness will not abandon any of his generals. Your Highness, Su Hao's blood-stained face was full of surprise. Chu Yihan was far-sighted and always made the right choices. Why would he take risks because of him? Hey! Enough with all this modesty. Anyone would think you're playing house. Can't you see the torches in the distance? If they catch up, we're all dead. You'll have to account for my twilight years right here. Can you say something useful? Saint Wand shouted angrily, hands on hips. These people entangled with emotions were really too much. Chu Yihan exuded a formidable pressure, causing Saint Wand to back down slightly. Well, I just spoke without thinking. You don't need to take a loose-tongued person like me so seriously. Was he being too serious? Damn this bone-chilling coldness, who is he trying to kill? Do you have enough poison? Chu Yihan's gaze settled on him, suddenly asking. Poison. Enough to take down a few thousand people, but for tens of thousands of troops, it's not enough. Saint Juan rummaged through his tunic and belt, tallying his possessions. Su Yingxue looked at Chu Yihan and immediately stood up, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. Your Highness, do you have a plan? If Saint Juan doesn't have enough medicine, I still have some. She didn't need to say more. She had little ginseng and medicine King Valley. Chu Yihan could have as much poison as he wanted. Chu Yihan nodded. Help your brother. Roger that. Su Yingxu's face beamed with excitement as she and Saint Juan helped Su Hao up and followed Chu Yihan closely. The only one they ignored was Lu Ying. Seeing Chu Yihan preparing for battle, Su Hao remembered Lu Ying and instructed Su Yingxue, give my sword to Lu Ying for self-defense. Despite being chained, Su Hao's belongings were still in the tent. When they had come out earlier, Su Yingxue had retrieved his sword and kerchief for him and kept them on her person. Hearing his request, she replied, all right. She handed over the kerchief and sword to Lu Ying. The sword is for your defense. Take good care of yourself, but don't lose this kerchief no matter what. It was personally embroidered for my brother by Sister Jin Yan. Lu Ying's eyes, as she looked at the kerchief, flashed with a dark desire to destroy it. However, outwardly she expressed her gratitude. Thank you, 9th Princess Consort. The difference between her gratitude now and her aloofness before was striking. She still wanted to take Su Hao from Su Yingxu's hands, but after Su Yingxu's refusal and expression of displeasure, Lu Ying respectfully bowed her head without arguing further, showing a very compliant demeanor. Even Saint Juan couldn't help but laugh. This woman truly loves your brother. She was as proud as a peacock before, but now she's so respectful to you, the ninth princess consort. Humph. Su Yingxue didn't have much of a liking for her, but at least for now she wouldn't let her dislike lead to any action, so she just snorted coldly. Don't humph. I bet she loves your brother deeply, and shall be your sister-in-law in the future. With Saint Juan's vast experience and insight, he could tell this Lu Ying was not simple. Moreover, she harbored an extraordinary persistence towards Su Hao, a resolve so deep that not even broken bones would deter her. Temporary evasion. Because Chui Han was leading the way in front, the three of them hadn't sustained many injuries, and when someone tried to attack from behind, Lu Ying successfully fended them off. So although their progress was difficult, they still managed to tear a hole through the enemy ranks. However, they knew that it would be impossible for just a few of them to fight their way out. Pfft. In front, the blood of the enemy soldiers splashed all over Su Yingxue and Saint Juan, and the only thing they could smell in their nostrils was the scent of blood. The enemy general yelled at them, "Stop! You can't possibly escape. Surrender now, or we'll kill you all." Su Yingxue couldn't possibly stop, but Lu Ying retorted, "Don't even think about it. Even if we die in battle, we will never surrender. General Su Hao and I will not surrender, especially now that we have a leader." A leader. The enemy general took a moment to react, then his gaze landed on Chui Han, who was holding a sword. The bright gleam of his precious sword and his powerful presence, which no one dared approach, made the general realize instantly, Chui Han. He's the commander of the enemy forces, 9th Prince Chui Han. Capture Chui Han alive. Rally our troops. Capture Chui Han alive. And his 9th princess consort, seize them. Seize them. The soldiers who had been scared off by Chui Han were suddenly reinvigorated as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They launched a more ferocious attack on Su Yingxue and Saint Juan, forcing them to divert their attention from aiding Su Hao to confront the enemy. Su Yingxue, be careful. Saint Juan threw a handful of poison powder, taking down a small group of men who were about to land their blades on Su Yingxue. He handed Su Hao completely over to Su Yingxue. "Hold your brother by yourself. I'm too busy now." His protection was vital to them. It was far too dangerous for Su Yingxue to attend to Su Hao while her attention was divided. Lu Ying stood guard by Su Hao's side. Though she had sustained some minor injuries, she hadn't let anyone touch Su Hao. She knew it was difficult for Su Yingxue to support Su Hao alone, so she seized an opportunity when Su Yingxue was growing weary and seemed about to falter, stepping behind her and taking a blow from a soldier's blade for her. Pfft! Lu Ying spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, her eyes filled with urgency as she warned, "Princess, be careful." Su Yingxue summoned her energy, kicked fiercely, and used her red jade soft whip to coil around the neck of their attacker, flinging him into the air. The man landed heavily on the ground, his muscles torn and bones shattered. Lu Ying. Lu Ying, how are you? Su Yingxue had no choice but to lay Su Hao down to help Lu Ying up. Lu Ying, on her knees, suddenly looked up and charged toward Su Hao. She threw herself into Su Hao's arms, and the wound on her back from a recent blade strike received yet another gash. Ah! The pain of the flesh being sliced open made Lu Ying sweat cold sweat profusely. Su Hao held her, his voice tinged with nervousness. "Lu Ying, are you all right? The wound on your back, hang in there." "Okay," Lu Ying responded gently, "for you, it's all right." She struggled to summon a smile for Su Hao, causing him to feel an intense guilt. "Your Highness, Lu Ying is severely injured. We must treat her wounds at once." Su Yingxue shouted this while continuing to fend off attacks, calling out to Chui Han. Chui Han swung his sword, the sword energy fierce and roaring like a soaring dragon, unstoppable. The dozen or so men in front of him were instantly slain. He surveyed his surroundings and pointed to a cave, in there. Su Yingxue and Su Hao, carrying Lu Ying, retreated into the cave. It has been 70 years since being enslaved. Shui Han looked toward Saint Juan. Release the poison. Hold them back. Roger that. With a swoosh, Saint Juan pulled out his belt, scattering it open, and multicolored poison powder spread into the air, blinding the eyes and inducing hallucinations. Soon after, all of the soldiers began to vomit blood and fell to the ground. Before retreating into the cave, Saint Juan also placed multiple layers of poison on the ground and in the air, ensuring they couldn't invade in a short time. He ran into the cave, hands on his hips, gasping for breath. Damn. I'm exhausted. Shui Han, you sure know how to boss people around. They all had retreated first, leaving him to cover the rear. Unfair. And not even a word of worry about him. These soldiers are no match for you in any case. There's no need to worry about you. Shui Han glanced indifferently at him and then walked over to Su Yingxue's side. Looking at Su Yingxue, covered in blood, he grasped her arm, pulling her up. Where are you hurt? Su Yingxue shook her head. I'm not hurt. It's not my blood. It's Lu Ying's. She's severely injured. I need to treat her now. Your Highness, are you all right? Seeing that her color was normal and she wasn't injured, Shui Han let go of her and headed outside the cave. Your Highness. Are you injured? Su Yingxue still chased after him to ask, but Shui Han didn't give her so much as a glance. With time pressing, Su Yingxue could only hurry back, to apply medicine to Lu Ying's wounds. Her movements were swift, and she gave Lu Ying some anesthetic, which after taking, made her fall into a deep sleep. Night fell quickly. Saint Juan rubbed his arms, shaking his head and sighing, cold and hungry. I don't know how long the few of us can hold out, and I don't know if Shui Han has arranged for reinforcements. If not, we're certain to end up stuck here. Su Yingxue glanced at the weak Su Hao. They needed not only warmth and food but also medicine. She went out, entered Medicine King Valley, and brought back some silk quilts, scooped up some spiritual spring water, and even caught several fish, while also grabbing some medicinal herbs. She dropped a pile of items in front of Saint Juan, instructing him to start a fire and roast the fish. She took charge of brewing the medicine and also gave a silk quilt to both Su Hao and Lu Ying, one for each to cover themselves with. Su Hao and Saint Juan, seeing her conjure these goods seemingly out of thin air, were both astonishingly surprised. Just as Saint Juan was about to ask where these appeared from, Su Yingxue stuffed a steamed bun into his mouth, shutting him up. Shut up. Get to work. No more talking. Saint Juan. It had been over 70 years since he was last enslaved like this. Seeing her attitude toward Saint Juan, Su Hao realized she didn't want to share, so he chose not to ask. Instead, Su Yingxue took the initiative to reassure him, Brother, don't worry about where these things came from. As long as we're here for one day, I promise everyone will live well. Well, definitely get out of here and be safe. Brother, do you believe me? Su Hao nodded. Brother believes you. He didn't need to ask for reasons. The inherent connection within their bloodline naturally led him to trust Su Yingxue unconditionally, without needing any rationale or explanation from her. Su Hao, wanting to recover quickly and not hold Su Yingxue back, took his medicine and then went to sleep. Behind him lay the injured Lu Ying, whose breathing was stable, yet it was evident that her injuries were severe. In his mind, the image of Wu Jinyan kept surfacing tumultuously, especially the time he hurried back to Jiangdu City, full of joy to meet Wu Jinyan, only to find her in a pregnant state. This scene played on repeat in his dreams, entangling him like a giant hand tearing at his nerves over and over, pulling out the most unbearable pain from deep inside his heart. Lost his handkerchief lease. As dawn broke the next day, the sounds of the enemy army's assault resumed outside the cave, compelling Saint Juan to go out and spread poison, a laborious task he performed diligently twice a day, just to keep the enemy at bay. Meanwhile, inside the cave, Su Hao and Lu Ying, the two wounded, were still recuperating. Chui Han and Su Yingxue were busy in their own ways, one tending to the injured and the other with furrowed brows in deep thought, pondering over something unknown. Only Saint Juan could not hold back his words. I say, Ninth Prince. Chui Han. Can we even survive this, and if so, when can we leave? You have to give us a word. We can't possibly stay here indefinitely, can we? The poison I have can last at most another 2 days. Have you even decided when the reinforcements will arrive, or when old General Su will come to rescue us? Chu Yihan's control over the war situation was not something he would casually reveal to others, especially when he himself harbored doubts. He glared briefly at Su Hao and Lu Ying, his voice low. The two of them are injured and cannot fight. My power alone is not enough to protect 4 people. We need to wait here a bit longer. How many days do we need to wait? I'm almost out of poison. Saint Juan exploded, aware of the dangers on the battlefield. He had brought as much poison as possible, covering himself from head to toe with it. But damn it, there seemed to be an endless number of enemies in this valley. Damn it, he was facing an army. An entire army. Thousands upon thousands of them. Even as someone who uses poison, he didn't have enough for all of them. Chui Han, you didn't come here alone, without discussing with your men, did you? Saint Juan expressed his concern. Do not doubt His Highness. Su Yingxue shoved another freshly fried little yellow fish into Saint Juan's mouth, crispy and delicious, though a bit hot. Ow, ow, ow. Saint Juan hopped around, covering his mouth, eyes brimming with tears. After he had settled down, Su Yingxue focused her attention on caring for the 2 patients, Su Hao and Lu Ying. Fortunately, Su Hao was quite compliant and caused her no worry. His wounds healed quickly. Compared to his life-threatening state the previous days, he was now finally able to stand and walk by himself. As for Lu Ying, she proved to be a bit troublesome. She insisted on taking medicine with Su Hao, doing activities with him, and even when standing up, she sought his support. Su Hao was a man who greatly valued propriety between men and women, even though he and Lu Ying had been forced into captivity together for a few days, and she had seen him at his worst. Lu Ying, in front of him, was unashamed. But that was all out of necessity. Now, whenever Lu Ying wanted his support, he wrapped his hand with Su Yingxue's handkerchief before helping her up, to avoid any skin-to-skin contact. Although Lu Ying was heartbroken, she remained devoted to him and constantly comforted him, hoping to inspire him. Su Yingxue coldly observed from the side, her feelings complex and conflicted. In her heart, she had long chosen the perfect sister-in-law, Wu Jinyan. She did not appreciate Lu Ying's forwardness, a woman who actively sought Su Hao's attention, loathing her for disrupting the connection between Su Hao and Wu Jinyan. But with Lu Ying having taken 2 stabs for her and Su Hao, the debt of life-saving gratitude made it difficult for Su Yingxue to maintain her distaste, hence, she often chose to turn a blind eye whenever Lu Ying clung to Su Hao. As if she did not see a thing. However, today, when Su Hao returned with Lu Ying, still wrapped in her handkerchief, Su Yingxue suddenly remembered, Lu Ying, where is my brother's handkerchief? His handkerchief is not with me. Lu Ying shook her head with an innocent look. Trust Qin Mayan or your highness? Lise, Su Hao frowned as well. The handkerchief, I'm afraid the enemy troops have already searched for it and thrown it away. He felt a pang of regret. That handkerchief was embroidered for him by Wu Jinyan, containing her special sentiment, her name, and a specially made corner of spices. He had carried it for a long time, and now it was lost. Not lost. I handed the handkerchief and your sword together to Lu Ying. Su Yingxue reached out to Lu Ying. Where is the handkerchief? Lu Ying seemed to suddenly remember, and then with a full face of apology said, I'm sorry, Su Hao. In the chaos of defending against enemies, I lost it. Lost? Su Yingxue appeared extremely agitated. When I gave it to you, I told you it was an important item for my brother, and you just lost it like that? I'm sorry, it wasn't intentional. Lu Ying bowed her head sincerely. I know it was important, and I failed to protect it, but if the princess wants to punish me, I am willing to accept it. She quickly knelt down to apologize to Su Yingxue. Su Yingxue wanted to lash out at her, but Su Hao simply sighed softly. Let it be. If it's lost, it's lost. He reached out with the hand that had been wrapped with the handkerchief and pulled Lu Ying up, whispering, You take care of your injuries, Yingxue won't blame you. Yes. Lu Ying, confronted with Su Hao's tender voice, longed for it even more, her lips slightly raised. Brother. That's something Sister Jinyan gave you. Su Yingxue's gaze toward Su Hao was full of reproach. She felt that Su Hao didn't care for or worry about Wu Jinyan as much as he used to. Whenever Wu Jinyan was mentioned, his attitude was exceptionally cool, so much so that it seemed incredible to her. I know, Yingxue, you've been busy for days now, take a rest. Su Hao seemed to have no intention of prolonging the topic and sat by himself in a corner, back turned to them, radiating a deep melancholy. Without a word, Lu Ying sat beside him. The two of them weren't completely touching, but their intimate posture made it difficult not to misconstrue their previously innocent relationship. Feeling left out of the conversation, Su Yingxue didn't say much more. Her annoyed steps took her to Chu Yihan's side, who had been the quietest over the past few days. His eyes were as deep as an abyss, brewing something silently and mysteriously, instilling a sense of his power but also unease. Su Yingxue approached him, intending to ask if he wanted to eat something or drink some spiritual spring water. Before she could speak, Chu Yihan asked, Do you trust your highness? Su Yingxue was taken aback and quickly replied, Of course I trust your highness. In this world, if I don't trust your highness, whom else can I trust? What about Qin Muyen? If he were the commander today, would you trust him as you trust your highness? Chu Yihan's eyes suddenly sharpened, like a mirror flashing with cold light, clearly reflecting every psychological reaction of hers, leaving her no room for hesitation or pretense. Such a gaze made Su Yingxue uncomfortable, even somewhat averse. Therefore, she didn't bother concealing the truth and spoke frankly, I trust that Qin Muyen is also a capable commander. He could solve our current predicament just as your highness could, but the difference between the two of you, enough. A dark storm seemed to swirl in the depths of Chu Yihan's eyes. He stood up and walked outside, growing increasingly stern and solemn, like a god impervious to violation, exuding a sense of distance. Seeking death lease, this sense of distance made Su Yingxue's heart uncomfortable and suffocated. By the third day, Saint Juan's poison had run out, and they had to go out to fight. But this battle was between the 5 of them and tens of thousands of soldiers, and without knowing whether there would be reinforcements, so each unleashed extraordinary fighting power. They fought for half a day, and their physical strength gradually began to dwindle. Behind the enemy's neat phalanx, the rumbling sound of wheels came. The crowd parted to make way for a man clad in black armor, with a large cape fluttering in the mountain breeze, appearing on a chariot driven by a soldier. He was tall and robust, exuding an impressive majesty, clearly a man of no ordinary status. And he recognized Chu Yihan. Li Qinghuan pointed at Chu Yihan and laughed loudly as if greeting him, ninth prince, it's been a long time since we last met, and you remain as heroic as ever. The greatest god of war in the 9 continents, just as the legends say. In Chu Yihan's hand, the Qing Feng sword glinted with a chilling light, and his lips curled slightly. Thank you for the compliment. Don't mention it. I've heard that you've taken a delicate wife, the princess. Today, I will capture them all in one fell swoop and use them to negotiate terms with Su Qingji. Let's see how many cities and taels of silver your great Qing dynasty will offer for your precious 9th prince and princess, and a mighty general Wei Wu. In your dreams. Su Yingxue lashed her whip, and the yellow sand filled the sky, gathering into a force that streaked towards Li Qinghuan. Li Qinghuan got a mouthful of sand and spit it out twice with a paw, brat. When he got a clear look at Su Yingxue's appearance, the corners of his mouth curled up with a wicked smile. So this is the renowned 9th princess consort, the beauty unmatched in the world. Today, I will take you into my ranks, and tonight, you will serve in my bed. You! Su Yingxue lashed out with her whip again, but Li Qinghuan was prepared, and the sand didn't reach his mouth. Meanwhile, Saint Juan seized the chance to act, and an inconspicuous silver needle shot into Li Qinghuan's knee. Li Qinghuan had just laughed heartily twice when he felt a piercing, intense pain in his knee. His gaze turned to Saint Juan, flamboyantly dressed in red, and he yelled furiously, "Scoundrel! What have you done? Scoundrel, scoundrel! You're the scoundrel! When your grandpa was roaming the Jianghu, your mom hadn't even made a peep yet." Saint Juan, hands on hips, spat out a mouthful of disdain. Li Qinghuan's eyes bulged in fury. "You're courting death. How dare you insult your highness?" Seeing that Saint Juan appeared to be in his 20s, he had no idea that what Saint Juan said was actually true. Saint Juan had been wandering the Jianghu when Li Qinghuan's mother hadn't even been born, and he couldn't have known where he was. So, when he gestured for his men to kill Saint Juan, he himself was in too much pain to stand. A few of his men fell to the ground, poisoned by Saint Juan, and Li Qinghuan stared dumbly at Saint Juan. "You, just who are you? And what have you done to me?" "My name is Saint Juan, commonly known in the Jianghu as the Poison Doctor. As for you, you're too vile. I've merely crippled your leg." Saint Juan strolled about as though taking a leisurely walk in the courtyard. Li Qinghuan tried to exert strength, but after a wave of excruciating pain, he found he really couldn't move his leg and had no strength in it at all, as if it wasn't there at all. He glared at Saint Juan with gritted teeth. "Kill him. Kill this witch for me." "Witch? Your mother's the witch." Saint Juan bit back with equal vehemence, his limited supply of poison in hand, and charged directly at Li Qinghuan. When it came to cursing, it was always him cursing others. Those who cursed him are now grass tall on their graves. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.